What's going on, everybody? It's FREEDO and Weagle here today to discuss the 2-2-2 meta. We've been playing role queue on the PTR a ton and are excited to share our experiences with you. However, I will say there is a possibility that Blizzard comes through with a massive patch that ruins some of these meta predictions, but I think largely what we've learned is going to translate, plus or minus maybe a Reinhardt buff here or there. And talking about tanks is actually exactly where I want to start, because as we know on the live version of the game, bunker meta is everything. And I know me and you might disagree on this very slightly. I think Sigma's coming in to just kind of rock Bunker's world, literally, with his accretion ability. And I think he's very good against Bunker.
I think that some people's experience on the PTR so far is a little bit negative with Sigma because people are trying him out and he is probably the most mechanically demanding tank or one of the most difficult heroes to play in the game. So some people are not getting the best results out of him. But having watched a lot of footage of him being played, and me and FREEDO are actually trying to rock some Sigma and Zarya on the PTR, we've seen some combinations of him being able to destroy Bunker, which is really, really nice. I like the fact that it doesn't seem like there's going to just be one comp that's going to dominate everything. And I was thinking about comps like Bunker. If a Sigma rocks up to a Bunker on the high ground and maybe there's a couple of enemy DPS split around, then Sigma's going to look bad in that spot actually. But then Dive might come into play. If you're thinking of a map like Numbani maybe, well, Dive is going to be good if their enemies are split up, and then if they're all just trying to bunker up in one place and you can get Sigma destroying the barrier with his primary fire, I think that's going to be really, really powerful and add some counterplay to Bunker that we actually haven't really seen before.
Yeah, exactly. Because right now, the best thing you've got really is Mei to try to put that wall up. And it's on a long cooldown as well, whereas Sigma, although I think a lot of people are worried his barrier is not very good, I think you'll be amazed what it can do when you really start to min-max it, especially with how fast it can come out. It just directly gets in front of the halt quite easily. And I think if you're denying the best thing that Orisa Hog can do with pretty much ease, well, that comp all of a sudden looks like it just gets outplayed. But what you say about high ground is obviously really in this conversation. If you're on the low ground and they're shooting around you anyway, maybe that doesn't matter. My points about it beating Bunker is more so on the long lines of sight, like let's say the Junkertown mirrors with Bunker that we've seen really for the past 2 years. Sigma now gives us a new answer to that and some tools that really were only available in the DPS category, now in the tank category. And remember, there's other combinations you can use too. We think Sigma Zarya is like the best because its mid-fight is incredible. You can brawl, they both can block for each other and body block, sustain. But also when you toss in a D.Va in there, it works pretty well because D.Va's ult is even more impactful than having 2 CCs, right? You can just toss the D.Va ult in the air pretty easily with the black hole and wipe everybody in a bunker. Remember that shield stays on the ground for Orisa, making this combo even easier. So long story short, I think the world we live in now, where Bunker gets played all the time, is just going to be gone, in my opinion. Maybe Sigma doesn't beat Bunker in every situation, but in those that you're bringing up, I think then you probably could still dive Bunker, which would be a great world to live in if we actually do get to a point where each place of the map, depending on the ground, gives power to different comps. And if that's true, we're in the best glory days of Overwatch we've ever had.
Yeah, we've had that briefly before, but it didn't feel like it lasted very long, I think, where you'd get a map, you'd get King's Row, and you'd go, okay, Reinhardt, here we go. Or you'd get Gibraltar, and you'd know you'd have D.Va and Winston. I really like that. And the thing that I like about Zarya and Sigma as well is people do talk about the combos with his ultimate, but honestly, his ult is so good that if you use it at the right time, the things in the air are so easy to shoot anyway. I don't think you necessarily need a combo, and then you have 2 really strong, powerful team wipe ults. And on top of that, what people aren't realizing is that having Zarya and Sigma 2 DPS and 2 healers is kind of like having quad DPS in a way, because Zarya builds up so much charge and you use them bubbles to alternate between Sigma's main shield that you can get ground fairly easily, and then when you get there, you're fully charged with Zarya and everything's just getting smacked in the face. And I think it's a really fun and interesting comp, and it's the one that the most I'm hoping is the best combo, I think, with Sigma. I think it's a lot of fun. And in terms of maps, I'm really hoping hoping that that's the case as well, because then we haven't got to keep making all these crazy hero balances all the time, and we can pick based on the map that we get. And then what happens later down the line when people get used to them maps and certain comps being run on them is that you can throw out different cheese strats to try and catch people off guard, or you'll go into a map knowing what to expect a lot of the time and how you can try and counter it. If it's a bunker heavy map or a dive heavy map, you will already have a strategy in your mind of how you could deal with that when you get into the game.
Yeah, I love Sigma. His damage is way better than people think it is. It's as if you are a damage character on the ground, like Pharah's damage essentially, if you hit all of his shots, and the splash damage on it is incredible. So I'm secure in thinking Bunker will feel weak to it. My only concern is that what we'll all do is default to something a bit too mainstream, because really, counterpicking in Overwatch is sort of an overrated idea. Usually what the top meta wants to do, whenever it can, is pick the most stable heroes that can't be countered easily. But there's so much in the game that's pretty good, I'm thinking that might not be the case, which is ideally what we want, because we might just go back to it being dive all the time, but there's so many ways to punish dive that I think you will be able to counter it and get yourself in sort of a meta triangle depending on the map, and every matchup will feel different and there'll be a lot of variety in the game. That's the ideal scenario, but the one hero that I do think is sort of left behind in all of this is Reinhardt. I want to say that steadfast buff feels amazing. I just don't really know where he fits in the game and if it feels good enough to run. So on certain points, I think he actually is underrated, and you're going to be surprised how good he is. Like, for example, on Sanctum Nepal, you always felt you had to play Orisa because she has the boop resistance, she boops people off the map, but now Reinhardt, he just doesn't really move anywhere when you boop him. It's basically a waste of a boop to try to use it on Rein, and because of that, he can close the distance and start swinging on you and destroy you, but I still think he probably needs a little bit more love. A buff that I think would work wonders for him is being able to move a bit faster while shielding. This can compete up against the Orisa buff, which allowed her to move faster while shooting. Seems kind of fair to me, and if he gets that, we may be able to see ourselves in a bit more of an interesting tank meta. If not, Orisa's Halt already crowd controls him too strong. That's the main problem he has. So maybe we'll have Sigma to beat Orisa, but I think Rein is just too weak to her to be an option currently anyway.
I kind of feel the same way about most of the heroes in the game, to be honest. Reinhardt is down in the weaker category, especially in ranked, I think, and you could argue that D.Va's pretty hard to use, but generally we will see most tanks get used, and also I think that the best tank, let's say it's Orisa, isn't 10 times better than the next tank, who is then 5 times better than the third tank. It's not like that anymore, which gives me a bit of confidence that we'll see more diversity. And talking about that, I think even supports are even safer. I think that all of the supports are actually pretty good at the minute.
Right, I tend to agree. It comes down to the combos and the matchups. You get to counterpick nowadays based on what's beating you on the enemy team, and there's a lot of flexibility in that support position. Even characters people thought are pretty weak, like Moira, looks pretty strong with the resource buff that she got a while back, and she's still got the best escape. I know she can't escape after getting hit by a stun, but being able to escape before it is quite more than any other support can speak for themselves. So whether it's survivability or mid-fight power or a better ultimate, you really have a range of options that all feel quite good at their job. The issue is that I have is with this entire dream that we're in the golden era of counterpicking. Counterpicking has been hard thus far because you lose your ultimate charge. Now, this brings me into the much bigger conversation about the effect that the 12% ult generation nerf has onto the game, and I'm not exactly sure where I sit on this. We've played the game a ton, and I definitely have noticed there'll be less ultimates, but I'm not sure how the tempo of it affects how you feel you can swap off your hero, because it used to be, well, you have an ult, why would I ever swap off an ultimate? Then I get stuck on this hero again because I'm halfway to my next ultimate, right? And you just constantly are in a state of being worried that you're going to lose a very valuable resource. Whereas now, I hope anyway, that ult charge rates are low enough that you feel that if you have 30% or 50% ult, it's not that big of a deal to get rid of it. And I don't know if I'm right or wrong about that. I'm just not really sure one way or the other.
Well, there's some ultimates that I'm just concerned about flat out, like Zarya Graviton, for example, might now be really difficult to get more than one in a round of King of the Hill, for example. Say you nearly always reliably got 2. Well, if you now only nearly always reliably get 1, that's half what you got originally, personally, and I'm thinking that there's probably just better picks out there that get ultimates outright, because generally ultimates do win the game. The better ult economy on a team makes the biggest difference, unless the ult economy is so different now that it's all about mid-fight heroes like Tracer, who I'm so happy is pretty good again and got the pulse bomb buff, and maybe Doomfist. People like that are going to see a lot more use because they're not as reliant on the ultimates, especially if it's based on a round that maybe you only have a couple of minutes left, or again if it's a King of the Hill where they're generally pretty quick.
Yeah, I wish I had a much more secure answer in this, and I guess we just have to admit that we need a lot more testing, because the truth is, having a really powerful ult tended to charge your other ults faster. So it's not just 12% across the board, it's also the rippling effect of, you know, maybe getting Supercharger slower and then not being able to use Supercharger to get your other ults faster, right? Or shooting them in a grav, you get a shatter for free just off swinging on it, for example. So I don't know how that's going to affect being able to counterpick more often.
Well, the thing is as well is that 12% of them ultimates, 12% extra for Orisa is a lot more than 12% for Pulse Bomb, because they cost different values, right? So that 12% makes a big difference on an ultimate that takes a lot longer to charge. So the 12% that Orisa's is going to take longer might increase it by a minute, whereas the Pulse Bomb might only be 10 seconds or something like that. I don't know the exact values, but I hope that made some kind of sense.
Right, it has a dramatic effect on higher cost ultimates. Also, support ults is a really big deal with that as well, where having a support ultimate, especially Lucio, it's going to take forever to get Lucio ult in this new format, and you might not have the answers to be able to defend against some of the aggressive ults that are out there. For example, you know, Pharah can build her ult really quick, and you might just never be able to sync up to have a defensive ult in time for those making play ultimates, which in a way is kind of good, because the GOATS meta, where you just never died and always had a defensive ult at all times, was pretty lame.
So the last thing I want to talk about today is just some heroes that we think are going to be really good in the ranked context, not necessarily in the most organized. And the one I'm just going to throw out there and start with is Mccree. I feel like when that change came out, I wasn't even playing the game, and everyone made a big deal about it, and it's just kind of gone through so many patches and iterations, and things have changed that it's almost been let slip and people have forgot that it happened. And I've been playing the PTR with Mccree, and if people don't focus you down, especially if you're got a pocket with a Mercy or even just a Zen Orb out on the field, Mccree is absolutely devastating when left unchecked. If he's just up on the high ground, or your tanks are just taking enough aggro to give you a bit of space, he can just delete things, I think, quicker than nearly anyone in the game. I was talking to FREEDO before recording this, and I think Mccree can kill multiple targets faster than Widow, based on hitting the shots as quickly as possible. And Mccree also has the dodge to reload his new machine gun that he has, and honestly, Deadeye is so bad as well that you can use that to reload your gun too, so you can pretty much always shoot, and you have a two-shot from, honestly, most distances. Pharah or Widow right out in the distance, maybe they're 3 shots to the head. But he's in a really good spot, and I just feel like people have kind of forgot about that.
The main reason why, I think, is because Mei is sort of the queen of the meta right now, but as we move away from Bunker, we're going to start to see Mccree be more valuable, I think. Because right now, Mei's got an escape as well as an interaction with Halt Hook. The walls get value. The gameplay's really slow. When we start to see other dive heroes come back into the mix and the Bunker not be the be-all, end-all of the game, I think Mccree starts to look a lot better there. I mean, I think tank players can speak. Trying to play Winston into Mccree just feels horrible because his stun fan instantly kills you, or he can headshot you and machine gun you down with left clicks. So he's pretty insane. It's just that at the pro level of play, their dive, focus fire, target calling is so good that they never let him be able to do anything. Whereas in ranked, that almost never happens, and a lot of times you can just get away with murder. But otherwise, what are some other heroes that we think are incredibly strong? I would put Hanzo up there as well. Widowmaker if you've got sick aim, and realistically, the entire damage category is just
most of the cast across the board, to be honest. Most of the heroes are pretty good. I definitely think, and I hope, I'm going to say I hope rather than I think, that it is more about the map you play on, because I don't even hate having Symetra on my team anymore, because she can be really good, especially with some of the changes she's had on the PTR. But I still think if you pick her on like Attack Gibraltar, you're probably not utilizing her right, and there are better picks. But there are so many good heroes across the board in every category. There's just like a few, like Reinhardt. I'm just like, yeah, he's he's probably just, I don't know where this guy fits. I don't know where to put him. And apart from that, I feel like I wouldn't be sad about most of the picks as long as the map fits them. I mean, Torbjorn's another one, FREEDO was telling me, and not a lot of people are playing at pro play, but he's awesome in ranked because of that focus fire issue that no one has. You got the turret down in a cheeky place. People just feed into it and give you ult charge, and it's a really horrible time for people if you get to run him right.
And you mentioned Symetra. She got that bug fix change on the PTR, and I don't know if it's just because Sim has been farming Sigma shields that are just tossed in her face, so she gets, oh, thank you very much, I actually enjoy shooting shields, and gets up to tier 3 really instantly and just gets play of the game every time she's in my lobby anyway. I'm not exactly sure if that, if that's an inflated stat point or not, but she seems to be better, especially at lower ranks. And that might be a problem area, actually. Low ranks, you're going to have to tell me if Sim's just been cooking everybody in your lobbies, because she is much more reliable and gets that damage done without needing perfect aim, which she needed before in the old version. And a few other characters I wanted to point out, I think in ranked...
Reaper.
Yeah, I would say Doomfist and Reaper for sure. Reaper is just super obnoxious, and I think works in even more situations now in ranked than he even does in the pro level of play, just because the map control and the calling and just looking out for your teammates isn't quite there. So because Shadow Step is actually good now, he can get to spots that you won't see coming, then just pop out surprise and two-shot your Zen or your tank and all of a sudden carry the fight. So he's pretty incredible with a flanking style or even just holding an objective. He does a lot of things that are really good in this format, and maybe a little bit troublesome. I mean, honestly, in the damage category, if you just can play any of them pretty well, you can find an area to do something with. I think Ashe is probably the only one I would say be kind of careful with, because she doesn't get the pickoffs that the snipers can, and other heroes have a bit more tools to use. But even her, I mean, we've been watching Shroud play recently, right? And he's been learning the game, but his Ashe aim is just so incredible that he just pops off and kills everything in his plat lobby. And if you have aim like that, well, sure, you can get Ashe to work. But I think the interactions and the toolkit that the other heroes have often does more than what Ashe does.
I'm just excited that Mccree and Tracer are good again, because they're my favorite and my best heroes, so I'll be getting out of plat hopefully sometime soon.
All right, guys, well, that's going to be everything for our role lock meta discussion. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Are we being too optimistic with all this? Because it feels like it's great, and I need you guys to bring me down to earth if I'm off base here. So let us know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out. Let us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, dank memes, and Liam's plat play clips. So go check that out. That's been it for FREEDO and Weagle for your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.